There's no data that taking something that is healthy for us, putting it in a pill and selling it to us for 10 times as much makes us live longer. It just doesn't. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's never been shown.
This is On Nutrition, a podcast from Mayo Clinic, where we dig into the latest nutrition trends and research to help you understand what's health and what's hype. I'm Tara Schmidt, a registered dietitian with Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. This episode, Eating for Longevity. But first, we have a listener question.
Hi, this is Brian James calling from Milwaukee. I recently saw something on the internet that said baby carrots are not good for you because they're soaked in chlorine bleach. Could you clarify whether or not this is true and the true health benefits of baby carrots? Thank you.
Hey Brian, thanks for your question. I've seen baby carrots get some bad press too, but let me make it clear, almost all Americans could use more carrots in their diet, regardless of size or variety. So what's with the bad rep? Here's a few facts. Fresh baby carrots are not a special variety. They're full-size carrots cut and peeled into smaller pieces. That means nutritionally, they're equivalent to whole carrots. Like many veggies, carrots are low in calories while still providing us with fiber, vitamin A, potassium, and carotenoids. Get it? Like beta-carotene, alpha-carotene, and lutein, which are antioxidants. They're briefly washed in chlorinated water, then rinsed to FDA and World Health Organization's drinking water standards. Chlorine is used as a sanitizer, the same way it's used to make tap water safe. This process is widely used for fresh-cut produce to reduce harmful microbes. The chlorine rinse is not bleach soaking. The purpose is simply microbial safety, not whitening or preserving. So the bottom line, crunch away. If the processing of baby carrots bothers you, that's okay. Stick with the big fellas. Big or small, just get some veggies in your life. If you have a follow-up question, leave us a voicemail at 507-538-6272, and we'll answer it in a future episode. Now, on to the show. Humans are living longer than their predecessors, but that doesn't always mean they're living healthy lives. Here in the U.S., about 60% of the population has some form of chronic disease, like diabetes, heart disease, or obesity. So what is within our control to avoid those chronic diseases in our golden years? What should we be eating? And how can we live younger for longer? Luckily for us, our guest today is the author of a book of that same title. Dr. Stephen Kopecky is a cardiologist at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and the author of Live Younger Longer: 6 Steps to Prevent Heart Disease, Cancer, Alzheimer's, Diabetes, and More. You might remember Dr. Kopecky from our previous episode, Unpacking the Ultra-Processed. Hi, Dr. Kopecky. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tara. Great to be here.
We are seeing a lot of methods lately referring to reverse aging. So we'll talk about some of those methods, but let's start with some of the most extreme. 47-year-old tech millionaire Brian Johnson made headlines when he said he wanted to reduce the age of his organs to 18. He works out, he does red light therapy, intermittent fasting. Apparently he has 30 doctors on call to check his biomarkers. That sounds nice and overwhelming. And takes dozens of supplements a day, as you may assume. He is doing this all in an effort to live forever, quote unquote. Dr. Kopecky, what are your thoughts? Can money buy you a longer life?
Well, money can buy a lot of things, but it cannot buy time. And this particular tech millionaire you talk about takes like over 100 supplement pills a day. To me, that's kind of stressful. So it's not just about the food. It's about many things, obviously, longevity, how you manage your stress, how you sleep, how you eat, how you exercise. All those things are important, as are genes. But this reminds me of David Murdoch, who is a very good friend of Mayo's. And when he bought Dole Pineapple, he started learning about fruits and vegetables and says, I want to live to be 125. And he started eating basically nothing but fruits and vegetables and lived to 102, which was really quite a job.
We'll take it, yeah.
Yeah, because he was born in the 1920s, and he just died last June, I think.
What do you think is at the root of this kind of widespread interest in longevity? Is it the desire for youth, mobility, avoiding illness, more time with loved ones, or maybe just a combination of them all?
we've always, tried to find immortality, the fountain of youth type mentality.
Yes.
But I think COVID was a hard reset for everybody in that we suddenly found that, boom, this thing can happen worldwide overnight and affects our longevity. And longevity went way down, during COVID. Of course, the number one cause of death during that time was heart disease. But we're starting to say, what can we do to really help ourselves not have another one of these events? If it does happen worldwide, how do we protect ourselves? And it's very clear that the healthier you go into something like that, the healthier you come out.
Yeah, I like that perspective. Do you feel like there's something different about the current movement in terms of attitudes or kind of the technology that we now have easy access to?
AI has changed things a lot and in different ways. One, it measures what our age is and what our health span may be versus our lifespan. It measures what are all these different compounds we can take into our bodies and what do we need to eat and what supplements do we need to take. So there's a lot of things that people can do that they didn't used to have access to. I mean, the normal citizen, not the health caregiver.
You just referenced two different terms, lifespan and health span. Lifespan meaning the number of years a person lives, and health span meaning how long they live in good health. Let's also talk about how we define age. Can you explain the difference between biological age versus chronological age?
Yeah, great question. Your chronologic age, obviously the year you were born, and you add that to it.
Literally how old you are. Yeah.
Biologic age is different, meaning it's what age is our body, what age are our cells. And it isn't homogeneous throughout our whole body. Your memory is great, but your physical body isn't as good or vice versa. But in general, there are ways to measure. At Mayo, we have a very nice way, which is called ECG age, which looks at heart age, which is the number one reason to die is heart problems. And it will tell us what our heart age is versus our chronologic age. And that can change in a few months for the better or the worse. And it's due to a lot of things, not just how we eat, it's how we exercise or how we manage stress, how we manage our sleep. Do we smoke? Do we drink too much alcohol? It puts into effect all those, plus our genes and how our lifespan affects our genes, which we know it does, because a good lifestyle can turn off the bad genes and turn on the good genes, which is called the epigenetics of it.
Is our cellular age truly reversible? And for our listeners, cellular age is another term for our biological age. I feel like that's a term that's been thrown around on social media lately, too.
Yeah, and I think that there's evidence building that it is reversible. Why? Because our cells are not like a house that we build and they don't change. The bricks in the wall don't change. Our bricks in our cell walls change every day. They have to. They're living entities. Our cell is a self-contained universe. It has in it all the genetic material for all of us and every cell in the body. It has its own power plant called the mitochondria. It has its own waste management plant called autophagy. But, we can turn that on and off in different ways with intervals like you're talking about. It turns it on much more than continuous activity. So we can actually, I think, change our cell age. I mean, not to huge degrees, but certainly in lesser degrees that are very important for our lifespan.
When it comes to living a long life, let's talk about some of the factors that are within our control and those that are not. So things like genetics, environmental exposures or influences. Are those things that you counsel on in terms of this is what you can do and here's what you got dealt?
Oh, definitely. I tell patients that death is inevitable, but premature death is not. You can change that. I mean, we can't change our genes as much as we can change how they're incorporated by our lifespan. The epigenetics, you can actually turn off the bad genes and turn on the good genes. So people think it's a fait accompli. Gee, my father died at age 48. My grandfather died at 50. I'm going to die somewhere in there. That's not true. It's just not true. So the genes, we can modify how our body reacts to it. Environment is different. I mean, it's so hard for us to change our pollution type environment. Wherever you live, your zip code's a big predictor of how long you're going to live. But your environment is changeable, meaning if you are in a job that you hate, you can change that. If you are in some sort of place where you can't be active physically or you can't get good food to eat, you can help modify that a lot. There are things you can do in each instance. But again, it's not usually a quick and easy fix. It's not an epiphany. One day you say, okay, I'm going to move across country. And that just doesn't happen. We have to slowly change things, and how we eat are really important. The social determinants of health, socioeconomic status is so important. But the things that can be done within that, and that's primarily diet. The average American eats about 8 servings of ultra-processed food a day, unless you're under 35, when it's probably more like 10 servings of ultra-processed food. And you can track the number of servings of ultra-processed food you get and your lifespan and your propensity for developing disease. It's really very directly related.
And you were a great guest when you came on Nutrition to talk about ultra-processed foods. Dr. Kopecky, in your book, Live Younger Longer, you outline 6 healthy habits that can boost your odds of avoiding certain chronic diseases. Can you share what those habits are and why they're important?
Well, yes. For ease of remembrance, I put them in north, south, east, west. North is just nutrition. East is exercise. West is weight. But south has 4 things in it. So smoking, spirits, which is alcohol, social/stress. We all need to deal with our stress. And then the last one is sleep. Now, if you're a whiz at math, you will realize that's 7 things, not 6.
I was counting on my fingers. Did you see?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And the one that's not as important is weight. We didn't go into that. And it's because the data really shows if you exercise, you're in good physical condition, your weight is not that important. And so that actually fitness outweighs weight every time. So that gives us, the major things. And it's important to try to do all of them because they're also related. So if you don't sleep well, then you tend to not eat as well. And then you also don't exercise as much. You have a higher body weight. And sleep is, I think, the forgotten risk factor. But all these things are so important. And social and stress, this younger generation is the most stressed generation we've ever had in this country, with all the social media and the pressure on them and such. The social thing, the support from loved ones and family, so important. And it's something we kind of forget about in our, fast-moving world.
Living a long, healthy life is not simply a matter of watching what you eat. It's about a multitude of things that includes how you manage your stress, sleep, and exercise. Then there are your genes, which you can work on too. Our behaviors and environment can actually turn off the bad genes and activate the good ones. The key to living a longer life is NEWS, or North, East, West, South. Nutrition, exercise, weight, and S for smoking, spirits, stress, and sleep. Now, let's talk more about the specific foods to eat for longevity. So I'm working on a cookbook for longevity with 2 other former guests on the show, Dr. Laura Reininger and Chef Jen Welper. It mentions 11 foods, and number 1 is beans and legumes. I feel like I read somewhere that beans themselves were the one food that was essentially part of maybe every evidence-based diet out there. They're part of a Mediterranean diet. They're part of an Asian-style diet. Beans are the one food that truly go across the board. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Legumes, they're high fiber. They, with whole grains together, give you almost all the protein you need. Beans have certain amounts, or legumes really have certain amounts of proteins. Whole grains have other proteins, but together they're very good. So you don't need to eat necessarily red meat. I tell patients frequently, look at an elephant. You ever seen an elephant pull a tree out, with his trunk? Well, he's a vegan. You ever seen a rhinoceros flip a car over with his horn? Well, he's a vegan, or she is a vegan. So the legumes really are great. And remember, anything that breaks in half is a legume. It could be a peanut. That's a legume. And soy, the Japanese have a lot of soy sauce. They have more sodium than we do, but they live longer than we do. And soy sauce is fermented. And you talk about fermented foods in your diet. And that really is helpful because it returns to our system a lot of the nutrients that are very healthy for us. So beans and legumes are great.
Now, let's talk about one that listeners might not think of. Chili peppers.
One thing about chili peppers, it's kind of interesting. They have capsaicin in them, which is the hot part of the chili pepper. But chili peppers have multiple colors. They're reds, they're greens, there's yellows, there's blues, there's purples. And these multiple colors really are very healthy for us. Purple things are great for you too.
And capsaicin actually has a lot of benefits. It can reduce inflammation and offer pain relief. This one almost feels like cheating. Cocoa.
Cocoa is one of these things that also has fiber in it, just like chili peppers or legumes. It does have a lot of antioxidants. Avocados, the same thing. The avocados are great. Just don't eat too many chips with the guacamole
with
that
your
you
guac.
eat. Right, exactly.
Yes, avocados are definitely on the list too. Next up, olive oil.
Avocado oil, olive oil, probably a couple of their oils like that aren't processed are very healthy. And we take these oils and we process them so heavily, they lose all their anti-inflammatory potential, like corn oil, safflower oil, canola oil. But avocado oil, olive oil, very different. You can cook lightly with it. If you go to too high of a temperature, it kind of loses some of its benefit. And then olive oil is the mainstay of the Mediterranean diet. So in the Nurses' Health Study, it showed that about 40 or 50% of the benefit of Mediterranean diet was due to the anti-inflammatory part of the diet, which was basically the olive oil and the nuts and the fruits and vegetables and legumes, etc.
Okay, we're at number 6, oats.
Now, oats is another very interesting one because oats is a grain, but oats is one of 3 viscous soluble fibers that we generally have. So oats is one, psyllium is one sold in products that help your gut, and the third basically is barley. There's a lot of viscous soluble fibers mixed into many of the fruits and vegetables, but oats provides them, and nothing fancy. It could just be regular old oatmeal. Get out of the cardboard box and mix with water and heat it up in the micro or on the stove. Just don't put too much butter on it or brown sugar or all these other things. Put some berries on it, put some bananas on it, whatever. And it really does help you. It helps lowers cholesterol. It's great for your gut, great for your microbiome. Remember, our microbiome, there's more of them in us than there is us in us.
So true. We are outnumbered.
And there's more microbiome cells in our body than human cells in our body. And we have to take care of it because about 90% of our immune system emanates from the gut, and that emanates from the microbiome. So we really got to take care of it. If we give it food it doesn't like, it doesn't do a very good job of keeping us as healthy as it should. It helps our mood. It helps our ability to function as a human.
I love that. Okay, one of my favorite ones, fatty fish.
Fatty fish is a great one. I love fatty fish. Fish oil does seem to help us, but not as much as eating the fatty fish maybe 3 times a week.
Yes, get your omega-3s. Fatty fish are also great for cognitive health, reducing risk of cardiovascular disease, inflammation. And then we can't forget, of course, nuts and seeds.
Nuts and seeds are wonderful. The nuts have great oil in them. Again, a lot of fiber in them.
So true. Number 9 on our list, leafy greens.
What could be better for us? There's about 300,000 different edible plants on this planet. There are about 30 edible animals that we can catch, domesticate. So our species has eaten a lot of leafy green vegetables for hundreds of thousands of generations, just like berries.
That's number 10.
Our ancestors only got berries certain time of the year, but now we can have them all around, which is, again, great fiber in berries. We have some thornless raspberries that give us a pint of raspberries every morning for about 2.5, 3 months in our garden, and they go on the oatmeal.
And when we eat berries, we get potassium, magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin K, fiber, prebiotics, antioxidants. So eat your berries. And then that brings us to our final food for longevity, number 11, fermented dairy. Tell us about that.
The fermentation, replacing our microbiome, is very helpful. It started out because it helped make sure that there was good things growing in it and not bad things. I tell patients if they want to take probiotics that have organisms in them, that's okay, but it's better to have the fermented dairy or fermented foods like sauerkraut, something, because that has a wider array of them. Don't take the same lactobacilli every day of your life because that doesn't help you as much. But fermented dairy, kefir, you got to be careful maybe with some of them because there's a lot of calories in them and things like that. But you don't need a whole lot of it. Kombucha has gotten to be really big these days, and it's a little more fermented, so be careful. But this is a great diet y'all are putting together here.
Well, thank you. We just got through all 11 individually, just zoom through them. Any high-level thoughts about the diet as a whole?
Most of what you have on there, 8 of the 11 things, are plant-based. They're high fiber. We know our microbiome loves it. And what our microbiome lives best with is, fiber, which I call a non-caloric carbohydrate, which is very important. It fills us up. Things like the fermented dairy, we know cheese, yogurt, kefir, those things are healthy for us. Extra virgin olive oil, that's the mainstay of the Mediterranean diet with the nuts. And it's very anti-inflammatory. Both of those compounds are, which reduces inflammation. Some people call it inflammaging, just to help remember that it causes us to age. And if you can diminish that with the extra virgin olive oil and the nuts, it really can help you live longer and healthier.
So do we have proof that a Mediterranean diet is actually linked to a longer life?
Mediterranean diet, we know, is the healthiest diet, the best diet to help you live longer and live healthier. So a long lifespan and a long health span. Unfortunately, our lifespan is about 20 years longer than our health span now in this country. And if you look at what we're doing, we're trying to take supplements to negate our diet, which isn't always such a good thing to do.
So I'm curious, as a cardiologist, what do you suggest people actively focus on when it comes to their diet, especially as we age, since our nutritional needs actually change?
Really try to help patients understand that, if they look at the outside of their body and they think the inside is still 18 years old, the outside may be 65, But I say the inside is also 65 or whatever your age is, meaning that your hair, your skin's not as soft and as pliable as it was when you're 18, and the inside's the same. It gets dry and you need more fluid inside. So you need to increase your fluid intake. And however you want to do it, water or herbals, meaning coffee or tea, is the best. I tell people don't drink calories. Our species has never drank calories, for most of our existence, because it just quenches our thirst. It doesn't register as a calorie per se. So make sure you take in more fluid. That's especially true if you're on a GLP-1 agonist, because you need to up it probably to 3 liters a day of fluid, certainly at least 2 for a woman, 3 for a man, because the motility of the food through the gut slows down so much that you need to lubricate it. And you get real constipated if you don't. And the same thing can happen even if you're not on a GLP-1.
Okay, so hydration is critical. What's another thing to focus on in diet?
The second thing is you need less calories as you age, but you need more protein as you age.
You do.
So how do you get more protein with less calories? That can be difficult. So you have to eat the good stuff first. Eat the chicken breast. And this is the only time I really tell people maybe drink calories, which is drink a protein shake. But, drink one that you make yourself. You get a little blender, you throw in there some ice, some water, maybe some berries, fruit, things like that.
Some leafy greens.
Leafy greens. It could be frozen leafy greens, frozen fruits and veggies. And you can put different protein supplements in there, some whey powder, creatine, or whatever. And try to figure it out so you're getting more like 1.2, 1.3 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight. And that's the secret. Everybody thinks, well, I weigh 300 pounds. I need that much. No, you don't. Your body should be only 200 pounds. So, base it on that. And it's never just like we talked earlier about what you eat, because you can't eat a steak and grow muscle. That doesn't happen. In fact, anything we eat just basically turns to fat because it's extra calories. If you're going to eat more protein, make sure you exercise more.
Any other wisdom to share, Dr. Kopecky?
There can be unhealthy plant-based diets too.
Sure.
If you eat a plant-based diet that is a lot of ultra-processed foods, you do not live longer. So it really has to be more of a fresh, the fresher the better, the more the skin's on the fruit of the vegetable, the better. The other thing that I tell people, though, is don't forget about flash frozen veggies and fruits.
Yes.
That those flash frozen is something that's been around for over 100 years. Mayo pioneered it, but it freezes the fruit and the vegetable so quickly that it's an instantaneous freezing almost. And so the cell wall stays intact. And that means all the nutrients in the cell stay intact. So if you flash freeze a blueberry in Chile, where it grows, in South America, in the winter and send it up to us and we eat it, we still get those nutrients, much more so actually than you would get if they just picked the berry and sent it up on a boat, which starts to decay as soon as they send it.
Our lifespan is 20 years longer on average than our health span. So how can we bridge the gap with diet? Well, here are 11 foods for longevity. First are beans, which are high in fiber and featured in literally every evidence-based healthy diet. There's chili peppers, which reduce inflammation. The more colors you eat, the better. Cocoa has lots of fiber and lots of antioxidants. Olive oil. Make sure you get the unprocessed kind. This is also anti-inflammatory. Oats. These are a good source of viscous soluble fiber and are great for your microbiome and lowering cholesterol. Next, fatty fish. Great for cognitive health, reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease, and reducing inflammation. Nuts and seeds are a source of healthy oils and fiber. And make sure to eat your green leafy vegetables for their vitamins, minerals, and fiber. We've also got berries, which contain potassium, magnesium, vitamin C and K, fiber, and prebiotics. And lastly, fermented dairy for its probiotics to help our microbiome. Some other tips when it comes to your diet. Focus on hydration. Understand that as we age, we need less calories, but more protein. And remember, a plant-based diet doesn't automatically mean it's healthy. So stay away from ultra-processed products as much as possible. Next, we're going to talk about supplements. There are a lot of popular nutrients in supplement form, and I'm curious how effective they are. I don't take my medical advice from the Kardashians, but sometimes we can get sold on some of these things, Dr. K. So, NAD+, what do you know about it? Is it living up to the hype when it comes to longevity?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. So, nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide.
Yeah, I made you say it because I didn't want to.
Yeah, it helps our cells with the energy in our cells. Well, when you take it in, it's all broken down to niacin, basically, one of the B vitamins, and then it's reconstituted. And so if it's B vitamin, just eat the B vitamins, eat the leafy green vegetables instead. It's not been shown to help us live longer. It's all a lot of hype. And in theory, it sounds good, and it works good in roundworms and in maybe some small rodents, but not in general. It's just not that helpful.
Resveratrol, is this the conversation we previously had around wine?
Yeah. So resveratrol, an antioxidant, is supposed to help us. It's in red wine more than other types of alcohol, and they take it, they desiccate it, put it in a pill, and sell it to us. Again, it's supposed to be a good antioxidant, but no better than the fruits and the veggies we talked about eating.
Eat some grapes, everyone.
Exactly.
Okay. CoQ10.
Yeah, CoQ10 has gotten a lot of play because coenzyme Q10 is used by our cells and our mitochondria, which is the energy production plant in each cell, to produce energy, which is important. CoQ10 goes down in our cells and our blood system when we take a statin. And a lot of people are taking statins for their high cholesterol. And so we sometimes prescribe it or recommend people to take it. You can buy it over the counter. I tell people if they do want to take it, try to take the ubiquinol that ends in OL versus ubiquinone, which is the chemical name for coenzyme Q10. The ubiquinol ends OL is better absorbed, a couple hundred milligrams a day. The ubiquinone ends in O and E. It's not as well absorbed. It's a very safe supplement. It doesn't seem to hurt you. If people want to take it when they're on a statin, I'll say fine, but take it for about 3 months, a couple hundred milligrams a day. And if it's going to help you, it'll help you within 3 months. If it doesn't, you can get off it.
What about fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin E and vitamin D?
Fatty-based vitamins like vitamin E and vitamin D. You take too much of those, they don't come out in your urine like the water-based B and C vitamins. They store up. So don't take too much E. Actually, in a big heart study probably showed in a randomized trial, it actually increased heart problems along with beta carotene, which people thought would be very good because that's what's in carrots,
They had to stop a vitamin E study at one point in time because they were seeing high rates of cancer.
Yeah, it's not the perfect thing. If you get too much, it stores up in your cells, in the fat.
Yeah. Now, you and I live in Minnesota, and so I feel like vitamin D is a concern for us Midwest folks. We pull a vitamin D on some of our supplements in the clinic. Food-wise, there's not a ton of natural sources of vitamin D. So we've got egg yolks, we've got mushrooms if they were treated with UV light, obviously dairy when it's been added to it. So do you suggest that people get a vitamin D lab value or take lower amounts?
Yeah, well, we live in a part of the world where, we go to work and it's dark and you come home and it's dark for 3 or 4 months of the year. So the sunshine helps that. So I think it's reasonable to take some vitamin D supplements. Most calcium has vitamin D in it in this country that you buy because vitamin D helps you absorb the calcium better. Those are fine to take. And a multivitamin that has D and calcium in it is perfect. And that's fine to do.
I don't even know this one. Spermidine.
Spermidine, yeah. So it's got its name because it comes from sperm. Supposed to be good anti-inflammatory, things like that. It's a weird name. But again, it's one of these things that I'm not sure no one's ever shown it's any better than eating as healthy as you can.
Any other big ones we missed?
The other one we didn't talk about was magnesium. But magnesium is being pushed now for, you have low magnesium levels, especially if you're on a diuretic or a water pill that gets rid of potassium and magnesium. So take some supplements, it can help you. It's purported to help you sleep better. And that it's true. It might help you sleep a little bit, but I'm not so sure that it's not all, more that the fact you're taking it makes you think you're going to sleep better. So the magnesium, again, I say just eat the leafy green vegetables, and that's really probably better. They're just as good for you.
We started this episode talking about an individual who's taking multiple supplements a day. I had a patient once bring in a duffel bag, like an actual duffel bag full of their supplements. What are your thoughts on what seems to be a trend, the fact that people are taking so many?
Yeah, that's very interesting. No one takes more supplements than the American in terms of countries in the world. About 60% of Americans take supplements. Well, how's our lifespan? What if we compare our lifespan to Italy? You know what percent of Italians take something? About 5%. How about the Greek Mediterranean diet? About 30%. They have longer lives than we do. They're healthier than we are. Their lifespan and health span are longer, both of them, than ours. But they're not taking supplements. So the second thing is, no supplement has been shown to prolong life, despite very promising animal models. I mean, they do it in nematodes or worms and fruit flies and things like that, maybe even some rodents. But no supplement's been shown to prolong life. And there's no data that taking something that is healthy for us, like a fruit or vegetable, taking it, desiccating it, drying it out, putting it in a pill and selling it to us for 10 times as much makes us live longer. It just doesn't. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's never been shown. Now, after prescription medications, supplements are the top leading cause of abnormal liver function testing after, prescription meds. So be careful what you take with a supplement, because you think, oh, it's only going to help me. It doesn't hurt me. But they're not regulated by the FDA. They're not inspected. They can put anything in there they want. And a lot of them are from overseas, and it can really affect us. So don't assume it's helping us live longer and such. Then finally, we should never demonize or deify one certain food or one certain supplement. Yes. Because, the supplements, they may look good on paper and in theory, but they've really never been shown to make us live longer.
Okay, so imagine we tell the patient with the duffel bag everything you just told us now, but they still think they're going to miss out on important nutrients or vitamins. What would you say to them?
Then start to say, why do you want them? Well, doctor, I'm so busy, I can't eat healthy. Say, well, eating healthy, if you really eat healthy, say the Mediterranean or, the foods like we talked a minute ago in your diet, if you eat healthy, you really don't need supplements. And supplements, if you take them, they're not going to outweigh or counteract your bad diet. Life, it doesn't work that way. So just try to start working on small things, a bite at a time, to eat more healthy. And try to learn healthy eating habits, fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains like you've got on your list and the Mediterranean has. Start to work on that and put yourself in position to eat those things. So have some that you buy at the store and put in the fridge, or flash frozen things. Just have them available to you, because otherwise we end up buying what's in front of us, which is usually some ultra processed stuff that isn't really that helpful for us anyway and is actually probably harming us.
I completely agree. Let's end with a little bit of practical advice. What can people do, anything we haven't talked about, to protect their cells from aging?
Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question, literally. Some people come to me and say, doctor, what's the one thing I need to do? I think it's take this supplement or do this exercise or eat that food. And I say, life is never one thing. It's always a whole series of things. It's like, how did you learn your job? It wasn't one thing. How did you develop your marriage with your spouse? It wasn't one. How do you raise your kids? It's never one thing. It's always a series of many things, small things over a long period of time. And I just want to leave with one quote that was made by one of our founders, Charles Mayo,
Please,
who said, I wish people understood from what small things diseases come. And he wasn't talking, I don't think, about germs and viruses and bacteria. He was talking about your small daily habits that lead to things that can be very healthy or unhealthy. And that's something we should all try to remember.
Dr. Kopecky, thank you for coming on Nutrition. Again, you are a favorite guest and a true wonderful colleague of mine and mentor. So I want to say thanks.
Thanks for having me, Tara.
So let's go over what we've learned today about specific supplements. The hype around NAD+ is probably overblown. Just replace it with B vitamins or green leafy veggies instead. Magnesium and resveratrol can be prioritized in your diet too. Some people take CoQ10 when they're on a statin for high cholesterol. If you do, take the ubiquinol version for better absorption. Try it out for 3 months and see if it works for you or not. You can skip vitamin E, or if you do, avoid taking too much because it can build up in your cells. Vitamin D is good if you don't get enough sun, but we're not so sure about spermidine. There's no evidence to prove it's actually good for you. And when it comes to supplements, you also need to be careful about how many you take. They can be harmful and are the top leading cause of abnormal liver function. So do your research and talk to your provider before you start. Lastly, no supplement has been shown to prolong life. They won't counteract a bad diet, and they'll never replace a good one. So to live younger longer, just remember to watch your news. Nutrition, exercise, weight, and smoking, spirits, stress, and sleep. That's all for this episode. But if you have a follow-up question, leave us a voicemail at 507-538-6272, and we'll answer it in a future episode. For more On Nutrition episodes and resources, check us out online at mayoclinic.org/onnutrition. And if you found this show helpful, please subscribe and make sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. It really helps others find our show. Thanks for listening. And until next time, eat well and be well.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as medical or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider for any medical questions. The appearance of any guest does not imply an endorsement of them, their employer, or any entity they represent. The views and opinions are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Mayo Clinic. Reference to any product, service, or entity does not constitute an endorsement of or recommendation by Mayo Clinic.